She said, therapy is an illusion. You don't need to sit on someone's couch to heal. To me, healing requires isolation, but y'all don't want to hear that. So I was perusing through threads, as one is wont to do, right? It is a little too early to be on anybody's social media. It's 6:30 in the morning. I am doing this thing with my thumb. I'm just trying to see what's what before I get outside to go ahead and prepare for what is supposed to be snowmageddon. So before I go to the grocery store, go, link up with my mom, take my butt to Costco, I decided that I was going to have a little stroll, or rather, a little scroll on threads. So I go there, I'm learning this stuff about the TikTok thing, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But my feed is very much capturing the idea of therapy. It's books, it's therapy, it's blackness. That's what I want to see. Right. So she said, therapy is an illusion. You don't need to sit on someone's couch to heal. To me, healing requires isolation, but y'all don't want to hear that. So does not calibrate, right? Was not something that I was seeing. I was thinking, I was just like, how does one come to this particular conclusion? So I wanted to make sure that we had a word on this. Now, before we get into it, I wanted to say that this is brought to you because of one whose name is Glow. She has been doing daily posts on YouTube, and this is the start for me. She said, just start. Stop BSing, stop trying to make it perfect, stop trying to we all get in our heads about how something is supposed to be. And so while we're practicing all that perfection, we're not actually starting. And the therapist and me had to call me into the carpet because I was just like, you know that perfection is nothing but fancy anxiety, and yet you still practice. Maybe we need a conversation. So I had one with my therapist, and because she asked me to start writing down my reasons for delay, I decided I need to stop delaying because what she's not going to do is embarrass me with that homework. Anyway, so getting back into this particular post, so therapy is an illusion. I wanted to break this down in pieces, right? Because I think that sometimes we get into our feelings, but we don't hear what was said. And I realized one of my points is that I got into my feelings. So 3 points for this entire conversation. Number one, isolation ain't nothing but an extreme idea of protecting my peace. Number two, I want to remind you that harm doesn't happen in isolation. And number three, this one is the to me part that she put in there is important not to drop, and I almost dropped it. So let's go back and put a little bit of detail, a little sprinkling, some context on this stuff. So I like to start with definitions. Now, she said illusion, and I was just like, is this even the correct word? Because she said therapy is an illusion. And illusion is a thing that is or is likely wrongly perceived by the senses. Now, I respect that for her, it may be an illusion, that for her, she has not had the therapeutic experience that would lend itself to being helpful toward her healing. And I don't want to discount that. Boom. So did she use the right word? For me, the answer is yes. I still had to sit in it for me and myself. So therapy is an illusion to her, right? Because sometimes the to you is always silent. The next piece of that was you don't need to sit on someone's couch to heal. Agreed. Agreed. You don't need to sit on someone's couch to heal. There are multiple paths to healing. Therapy is but one way to heal. The prayer we have the problem is where she said to me, healing requires isolation, but y'all don't want to hear that. So I dropped the to me. We're going to get back to that to me later, but the healing requires isolation. That's my problem. Now, you're probably like, but if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. Yes, and isolation means that you are on your own by yourself, right? And the idea that you would need to be by yourself in order to find healing is wrong in the nth degree. Here's the thing. Isolation ain't nothing but an extreme of protecting my peace. Now, hang on. A lot of y'all say, I'm protecting my peace. I'm protecting my peace. So you drop people off. You never talk to them again. Sometimes they don't even know what the hell happened. They just know that you stop talking to them. You stop interacting with them. You stop having anything to do with them. You say, I'm not going over there because I'm going to protect my peace. I'm not going to do that because I want to protect my peace. And mostly I get into a space of wondering, are you protecting your peace or are you practicing in avoidance? A lot of us are practicing in avoidance. Whether or not we want to say that, that's what we're doing. We are practicing avoidance. We are unwilling to test the so-called skills that we say we have in an actual environment where people are present. So we isolate. So we say we're protecting our peace. So we don't leave the house. So you want to tell me that you are resilient. You want to tell me that you can get the new information and change up what you're doing, that you can that you know how to shake the shit off. You want to convince yourself that you are whole and healed, but you're avoiding other people. How do you know? Legitimate question. How do you know that you have learned the skills to separate what belongs to them from what belongs to you? How do you know that you're practiced in the boundaries that say yes and no? How do you know that you are practiced in knowing what is for you versus what is for them? How do you know when you don't go nowhere, where you don't see no one, where you don't practice with anyone because you have decided that you're protecting your peace, so you stay home and you isolate? Now, I also want to go ahead and separate these things out, right? So, like, isolation to me is an extreme of protecting my peace. Protecting my peace is the way that we drop people off and just be like, that's it on that. And sometimes we don't even have the conversation. To me, that is showing that maybe you have more anxiety about having a conversation than what you're saying. Now, I understand that everybody believes that they know exactly what the other person is going to say, but if you're not in that person's skin, then you may not actually know. What you can know is how they might react depending on how you say the thing. What you might know is the general pieces of who they are, but they may not be as versed in who you are and how you show up and what you would want to even say. So I'm saying that a lot of us, we bite our tongues, we maintain the peace, and then we get fed up, and then we stop and say we're going to maintain or we're going to protect our peace. But they didn't know that there was a problem because you've done such a great job pretending. That's all I'm saying. And when it comes to that isolation piece, it feels like an extreme of it because the protecting my peace is you start dropping people off. At some point, you don't have no more people to drop off. You have isolated. There are no people that you're regularly interacting with except those people, maybe at work and maybe your mama. If your mama is not the one of the people that you are protecting your peace from. I'm not saying don't cut people out as necessary. I'm saying that some of y'all aren't even trying to see if it's malignant before you cut it out. You said, ooh, lump out. We didn't say, ooh, lump, why? You're not asking any questions. There is no path, there's no path for reconnection. There's no path for reconnection. There's no path for forgiveness. There's no path for community creation. We want community, but it has to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, then we cut them off. I'm just saying, isolation is an extreme of protecting my peace, and I want us to watch out. My second point is this. It's a reminder that harm doesn't happen in isolation, right? So she's saying that isolation is what is required in order to heal. And I am saying that the harm didn't happen in isolation. So why should then the healing happen in isolation? You have a part to do, right? Accountability. It's yours. You also have a responsibility. You have something to do, right? Like, for everything that comes, right, there's responsibility and accountability. Responsibility is task oriented. Accountability is outcome oriented. What role did you play in the outcome that you had with that person? Was it through your silence? That's part of what I said in the first, right? Is it through how you thought you should behave, right? Like, were you acting or were you showing up, right? So because sometimes we gotta put on that fucking accountability. Some of us have we have helped to facilitate the harm to ourselves and then are upset with the people who further help facilitate it. They didn't create the harm. They don't even do the harm. They simply facilitate the way for us to do and be in that space. So a lot of us will say like, oh, I resent this person. And I continually am sitting in, do you resent them or do you resent you? You resent that you let go of your boundary. You resent that you let go of your rule. You resent that you decided to do something that was against your values in order to be or please or whatever them, because you are a person with free will and your free will chose this thing. I am not coming for you. This is me too. I have done it. I have been there. I did that thing last year, my birthday. I got very upset about something that was said. And I decided that I was resentful of my parents, that I resented them for violating my boundaries. And I'm looking like, but they didn't violate the boundaries. They are accountable to an outcome, but I was responsible for what would have happened. And so I recognized that the resentment that I had was actually for me. It wasn't for them. Right. And that's called putting it on, putting on them big girl panties and taking full responsibility. Because some of us are low key, high key, looking for the adultier adult in the space. And as long as you're looking for the adultier adult, you're not taking full accountability or responsibility. And sometimes that's what we need to do. Where it comes to receiving harm, though, most of us did not receive harm in isolation. We did not whoop our own asses. It happened from a myriad of other spaces. Some of those are from our family systems, because I believe that there are systems of oppression and those various systems harm us, right? So you have from the micro, the family system, to the meso, the like your neighborhood, and the macro would be like your government. Right? Like there are levels to this and there are levels to the harm, and one often feeds into the other because they're creating the idea that your individual life, your ability to be, is dependent upon your family, is dependent upon your neighborhood, is dependent upon your government, right? Micro, meso, micro. And in that space, they get harmed from the government. The neighborhood is harmed from the government. The neighborhood harms the family. The family harms the individual. And we then take too much responsibility and accountability in this area because we forget that there's an entire system involved and simply take on all blame for ourselves. We assign the blame to ourselves. And while I'm not saying go around assigning blame, understand who's responsible for what and what you are going to do about that thing. You did not harm yourself. There was harm sometimes it's in the family system, sometimes it's in your neighborhood, sometimes it's from the government. Sometimes I would say it's from all of these things, and we just don't always see the connection. The point is this. The point is that when we are doing or recognizing and try to ameliorate the harm that we have been receiving, isolating is not going to be helpful. It's not going to be helpful because it does not change some of the systems closest to you. If you isolate, you only have you, which means that you have your trash thoughts that are still steeped in the systemic foolishness to contend with. Your thoughts will make you believe that some things are reasonable when they are not. Feelings are not facts. And sometimes we have information, but it's the wrong information. And we are acting on the wrong information and saying that we're going to isolate. You have no sounding board. You are echoing in your own erroneous thoughts. The isolation will not help you. And it is not a display that you are healed, because healing or in being healed is about how yourself gets to interact with other people's selves, how they get to interact with you, and whether or not you can still maintain the you that you are when you are with them. And there's a difference between the them that is a jackass and the them that is actually actively harmful. And I think that we conflate the two because mostly what we're saying is that we have the right for comfort. And I'm not even questioning you on that. You should be able to be comfortable. And being in community means there will be times where you are not comfortable. Because the right to comfort is one of the characteristics of the white supremacist delusion. I will keep the links in the space below so that you can go ahead and peruse at your own leisure. But I'm going to go ahead and go to number 3, let me wrap up number 2, which is to say that just a reminder that the harm didn't happen in isolation, so that true healing doesn't happen in isolation. You may be able to do some work on your own, right? Through journaling, which is also you talking to you, right? Through books that you read, which is not isolation. That's actually you in a book, is someone else's thoughts that you are taking in and interpreting. Um, Through you and a friend, which is also not isolation. It's you and your friend talking. You're getting feedback in real time. Hopefully, they're not your echo chamber, right? You may do it with a trusted family member or whatever. This is also not in isolation. Your healing cannot happen. True healing doesn't happen in isolation because it is going to be required for you to test how well you feel being in a public sphere and space with having people who get to interact with you. All right, number 3. I said that to me is important, right? And that I almost dropped it, right? She said, just for us to recollect, therapy is an illusion. You don't need to sit with on someone's couch to heal. To me, to me, to me. Healing requires isolation, but y'all don't want to hear that. She said, to me, I almost dropped it. And this is a moment where I'm just like, see, there's a problem when we get to dropping things. When we drop someone else's to me, stated and unstated, because it's almost always stated and or unstated. We forget that they are saying what works for them, and we transfer them back to the majority. I also but I will say this. I think that part of it is I was a little bit in my feelings. I don't like people talking about therapy like that. Mostly because I feel like so many people have never tried therapy, never gone through the process of finding a good therapist for them, but are very quick to get on the internet and say what doesn't work and present it as something that doesn't work or shouldn't work for the masses. So there's that. And y'all already know in the beginning, I already said that therapy is not the only path toward healing. There are multiple ways to get your heal on. So there's that. That was that was me. I was in my feelings and I was hit and I said, what? Right. But I also take a beat to consider why that thing hit me in that way. And for me, it hit me in that way because there's already so much stigma against therapy, particularly for people of color, particularly for Black people, that I don't like to see more stigma on this thing that so many people are already benefiting from and that they continue to need. And sometimes seeing this type of message, especially when it goes uncontested, people believe that it should be taken as a truth. A capital T truth, when this may be a little t truth, as in it is her truth, right? This truth should not be and could not be extrapolated to others. And though I answered the other piece of it, right? Like I dropped the to me and I answered everything else but the to me. For her, if this works, and that's what works. And I'm not arguing. But for the purposes of our conversation, I just wanted to make sure that I name that sometimes we are not reading the to me in a person's statement, that it is an opinion, that it is not a fact. And so we get caught up in debating someone's feelings. What someone feels is neither right nor wrong. It is simply a statement of what is. And feelings are not facts. So she can feel like this thing works, and it may even work to a point for her. But I don't want to argue what works for her. What I want to make sure that I was stating is that healing doesn't actually require isolation. Harm happens in community. Healing happens in community. Many things actually happen in community. Humans are social creatures like very many other creatures. We do not actually thrive in the isolation that so many people think that they thrive in. Even the act of being on social media says that you are seeking some level of community, some level of camaraderie, some level of see me. Right? There's still a piece of it. We want to see and be seen by those in our community, real or imagined. So I leave you with this. I want you to consider the source of harm for you, right? Like when you consider the harms that you've experienced, what has been the source? Where did it come from? Think about some of the stuff that you feel like you got going on. Trace that thing back, right? Keep asking the question, from where, right? From where did you get this harm? And then when you identify the from where did they get it? From where did they get it? From where did they get it? Why do I want you to do this? Because curiosity is how we get linked. Curiosity is how we grow. Curiosity is how we change. All right, y'all, you're the bee's knees. I hope to see some of your answers in the comment section below, but remember, discourse, not disrespect. You keep that disrespect on your page. All right, so remember, consider the source of your harms that you've received, and also consider, are you a person who avoids by saying you're keeping your peace or that you're trying to stay in isolation? All right, bye.